Welcome to Heroes on the Horizon here in scenic IUS campus. The geese have not been harassing us lately, but
it's a miracle.
The sun
they
and the
babies
allergies
to take care of. Right?
Have been.
They do.
Yeah, they've been guarding their
spawns from hell.
So today we have a very special guest episode with some guests. That's what I meant to say. We've got Brad and Bobby here with us today. Billy, sorry.
Brad and Bobby.
Well, your new name is
Bobby.
Bobby.
That's your name now. Get back in your corner.
Baba Jean.
Oh, Charlie's here too, by the way.
Oh, no, he's not.
I'm okay, Dad.
Oh, God.
We're gonna
Bobby, that boy ain't right.
We have the ultimate showdown between the Spider-Man movies.
The most important debate in IUS history.
The thing that has divided Charlie and I the most over the entirety of this show's lifetime.
That and what Return My Love.
And also Moon Knight versus Batman. But, you know, the Spider-Man debate has been a big one. And that is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man versus the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And do you guys want to announce for yourselves what side you're on?
Team MCU Spider-Man all the way.
All right.
So I am Team Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I'm also dressed in a Spider-Man onesie. I know you listeners can't see it because this isn't a visual medium, but represent.
And I rode here on a float of spiders today.
It was the ultimate power move to come in here with a Spider-Man onesie.
Yep.
What about you, Levi?
I am also Team MCU.
I'm Team Raimi Spider-Man. I'm going to put some dirt in your eye, Levi.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Put some
Hi
dirt
there,
in your eye.
this is Brandine, and I'm Team Amazing Spider-Man.
I respect that.
Get out.
Oh, man. So, I don't think we agreed which team was going to start first.
I think we can discuss that. I think we're just going
Yeah.
at it.
It's kind of a back and forth.
I kind of assumed this would just be like an open discussion.
It is an open discussion.
This is a serious, formal debate.
Oh, man. Should have brought my rebuttal.
Oh, Charlie, you have an outline.
I made an outline. I
forgot to make an outline of my
He is prepared.
Well, you know, I
rewatched
rewatched Spider-Man: Homecoming last night, so it's pretty fresh in my mind.
Yeah, I watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I watched
Infinity War about a week or so ago, too. So.
I watched Spider-Man 1 last night.
I think that Infinity War is an important part of like the point of why the new MCU Spider-Man is better because of
how.
You know, honestly, like to me, I feel like MCU Spider-Man really does a good job of embodying the whole "with great power comes great responsibility."
Oh, no, he doesn't.
You get out of here.
But without like beating you over the head with it, you know?
Okay.
Because like. Thing is like rewatching Homecoming is, you know, I'm a big Spider-Man person myself, and over spring break I watched the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon for the first time. Great show, by the way. And Spider-Man: Homecoming has a lot of echoes of that because, like, I really like the scene where they're all in D.C. and all of his friends are going down to the pool at the hotel, and you know, his crush comes up in her swimsuit and tries to get him to go, and he's all like, no, I gotta do this or whatever, and like there's that shot where he's looking in from the sunroof in the Spider-Man suit down on his friends, and no, he can't do that. He has to go stop the Vultures. So I feel like that and a couple of other scenes, like even though Uncle Ben and the whole mantra aren't mentioned in the MCU yet, Far From Home's probably going to go there, but even though those things aren't mentioned yet, they still matter.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that he's younger, it helps him. I think it makes it a catalyst for him to learn these lessons better.
Yeah, you know, I like having a more inexperienced Spider-Man.
Yeah. He has to learn to mature and grow, whereas I think with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, he already kind of is almost basically an adult, and life just continues to just punch him in the face repeatedly in the most disgusting ways possible.
Yeah.
Can we
in
just
almost
talk
unreasonable ways.
That's what Spider-Man is, though.
Can we just talk about how much better the casting is in the MCU? Because like here's the thing. Let me talk. I know that casting 20-somethings to play teenagers has been a pretty like consistent practice in Hollywood since like as far back as the dawn of time, but like in the Raimi trilogy, they look older than their teachers. Okay.
True. Okay, but all of the characters are a little bit more memorable, I'd say, in the Sam Raimi universe. Like, okay, Spider-Man himself is memorable in Homecoming, of course, but
Ned.
Well, yeah, but
let him talk.
Let me talk,
you
Billy.
Talk.
So yes, Ned is a pretty cool character, but if you just look at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, you have I mean, you have J. Jonah Jameson, you have Osborn, you have... And I know people complain about Mary Jane, but you can't deny she's sort of the quintessential girl next door.
She's better than the MCU Mary Jane.
Which is... the MCU Mary Jane, she's kind of...
Just sort of my friends call me MJ. Wow, wow, waka waka.
Waka waka. Yeah, she's... I mean, I feel like she could be interesting, but right now she's just kind of there. And the other love interest...
screen time.
The other love interest in Homecoming, man... That was...
Although, to be
that
fair...
was blander than bland.
Like, the character she's based on is Liz Allen, who's like Peter Parker's forgotten love interest. And I feel like the reason they went with her is because they didn't want to do Mary Jane right out of the gate, and the Amazing movies already did Gwen Stacy, so I think that's why they went with her. And comparing her to the Liz Allen from the comics, I mean, because like Liz Allen is his love interest in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, and she's almost insufferable just because of how stupid she is.
Yeah,
right.
So that happens.
But so they didn't make her stupid; they just made her boring.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say right off the gate that I understand that the MCU does have its issues, but I want to make it clear that even though maybe the characters in the MCU could sometimes be slightly more memorable or have a little more screen time or whatever, at least you don't hate them like you hate just about every... At least for me, I dislike just about every single character in the Tobey Maguire Spider movies. Mary Jane.
Why are you hating on Mary
Tobey
Jane?
himself.
I
mean, Peter Parker in the Tobey Maguire is just not likable at all.
Well, Harry Osborn.
Oh my god.
But Harry Osborn just has such a presence. Like, he's just kind of... Well, because the actor who plays him, I can't remember his name.
James Franco.
James Franco.
Yeah.
James Franco already
He
has
was
this
Tommy
sort of...
Wiseau, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Oh, hi, Mock. He just has such a weird sort of slacker-esque personality. It really makes sense that he'd have this bad relationship with his dad, Norman, because Norman's such an overachiever.
That's like the hallmark of his character. He's like, he was so...
And I can also really see him becoming crazy like the Green Goblin because it's James Franco. Now... Charlie, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your case for Sam Raimi?
Oh, I have a big case.
Yeah, we gotta get these.
So I think that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man does in fact show the consequences of great power and great responsibility. Because I feel like the Tom Holland Spider-Man, he makes poor choices, but everybody has to face that impact of him. Like he has the boat scene where a guy ambitious, but Iron Man bails him out naturally.
Right.
Everything is like that. It's just I feel like by the end of the movie he's not really changed as a person per se, whereas I feel like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, I feel like he has more of a character arc throughout the movies. Now you can say that his whole point of being is his whole arc for Spider-Man is he wants to be an Avenger, but I feel like that isn't who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man isn't really an Avenger. Spider-Man's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know,
can I offer a rebuttal there?
I also have a rebuttal.
Let's do our stuff first because you all got plenty of time.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you got 8 minutes. Gosh darn it.
How did that?
Whereas I feel like the Raimi Spider-Man, he has a lot more consequences in his actions. Like he tries to save the day, but it has even more impact. Like he stopped the Green Goblin, but he pushed his friend apart from him because like he's like, hey, who's Spider-Man? He's like, I can't tell you because of him and Harry Osborn. Sorry, I'm out of it today, guys. That's my only day. You know that.
It's all good.
And Uncle Ben, he I feel like I prefer the Uncle Ben story because, gosh darn, I'm off it today.
Well, the Uncle Ben story just really has more impact because you see it happen. Like in the MCU, I get that they didn't want to go over old ground, but it's kind of weird they didn't even mention him by name.
Yeah.
And they kind of put like Tony Stark in as sort of the father figure.
That does create a cool what's it called? Between
parallelism?
No.
Dynamic?
Dynamic, there you go. I really like the dynamic between the Tom Holland Spider-Man and Iron Man. I think it's a really cool dynamic.
So I like the dynamic between Uncle Ben and Peter Parker because like they're clearly it shows the sign of fatherhood, Uncle Ben, when they talk.
Yeah, he really does.
And when Peter tries to and get the girl and try to be ambitious, he tries to not be responsible. He shouts at his uncle. He hurts him in a way, and that's the last thing he says to him before he dies. He has to live with that. Like, you're not my dad, so stop acting like it. And he walks off, and it just breaks your heart to see Chris Robinson start kind of cry a little bit. It's just,
yeah. What'd you have to say, Billy?
No, I feel like the Uncle Ben stuff will be mentioned more in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah,
that's fair. And the thing is, I'm going to keep going back to the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon probably during this, because rewatching Homecoming only a few weeks after I watched that, it's almost weird how many, I got a lot of, Spectacular Spider-Man vibes from Homecoming. I feel like it drew a lot of inspiration from that cartoon. because that show doesn't really show Uncle Ben's death either, but you still see him in like flashbacks and stuff. And I feel like that's more the route they're going to go with MCU Spider-Man, because especially in the trailers, they've really kind of been setting up that Uncle Ben's going to have more of a presence in Far From Home. Because actually, Peter Parker's suitcase in the trailer has Uncle Ben's initials on it.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, we can't really go off the future movies because we don't really know.
Yeah.
No, we can't. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
I feel like the Uncle Ben argument might be kind of a weird one to make, considering we don't know the direction they're going to take it in a few months.
And it probably would have been really lame to rehash that storyline in the first Spider-Man movie. I think they wanted to immediately introduce him in the context of the Avengers for the sake of the other MCU movies. So I think it made a lot of sense for them to bring that whole dynamic together right away. I think it was just the context in which it was released that really they ended up having to do that. So I hope that in the future they do take advantage of the Uncle Ben thing. Yeah. But I do want to say about how the Sam Raimi Spider-Man's kind of the consequences of his actions thing. My problem with that is that it seems like every single thing he does is just the stupidest possible thing he could possibly do. It's like in Peter Parker in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. He constantly, it's like life just wants to beat him up. And the thing is that at least in the MCU movies, like, he's allowed to grow and he's allowed to make mistakes in a way that's not super brutal. Like, it's more of like a kid who's trying to learn to be more responsible. I mean, in reality, how many kids really face the consequences of their actions like an adult would? Not as many. As someone who would be Peter Parker's age in the original movies. And part of the thing is that I don't think that there's as much of a character arc in the old movies either, because I feel like his problem isn't being honorable and doing the right thing, because even though he initially didn't do the right thing very much, he quickly learned that, almost overcorrecting that by, isolating himself from everybody. But his problem then became the fact that he's just so stupid. And so he constantly made horrible decisions. It stopped being about being responsible and started being about just how stupid he was, and how every single time he tried to save the day, he messed it up because he's so stupid.
I don't think that's how it works.
That's how I saw it.
And can I just say, like, a trademark part of Spider-Man's character is how, like, he's really snarky and doesn't really shut up during fights, and I don't know why, but Tobey Maguire just cannot land those one-liners at all. Like, he's just, I don't know, like, he just kind of always comes off like a dork,
Well, Spider-Man is a dork, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know, but he comes off as, like, not like the lovable dork. Like, I feel like
annoying.
Yeah, he just kind of comes off as a whiny dork who's trying way too hard to be cool.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to give my presentation here. Well, so I have, like, 3 basic points where I really think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is at least a little superior to the MCU. And the first one is, I think Spider-Man does better when he's by himself. Yes, it's true that it's interesting that the way they work in the Marvel Universe into the MCU, but it's weird to see Spider-Man sort of like almost sidelined, like all throughout, and tell him, you're a dumb kid, It's sort of he doesn't even have responsibility. Like, he has just a little bit, but Iron Man's constantly showing up. Well, he's not constantly showing up, but there's just this general idea of keep your nose down, which is, I guess you could say that's an interesting way to view Spider-Man, but that's not really how I don't think a lot of people view Spider-Man. The second one is a couple of you brought up how it seems like Spider-Man is constantly just getting punched in the face over and over and over again in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. But the way I view that is, when you have great power, with great power comes great responsibility is really true, because when you have that much amount of power and this amount in this world, and the Sam Raimi world, there aren't really any other superheroes, that everything you do has huge consequences. If you choose not to go out and crime fighting, 10 people could die because a supervillain blew up a building. If you decide you're going to go save all these people, you're going to wear yourself ragged. So he's caught between a rock and a hard place where he doesn't know whether he should keep being Spider-Man, do it overboard, or just give it up. And I love how in the Sam Raimi movies, at least 1 and 2, it sort of set that up. Like in 1, he gave up Mary Jane. He's like, no, all right, I won't do it. Whereas in 2, he found out, no, I actually do want the real life, so he gave up Spider-Man for a while. And then he eventually had to come back around and say, well, I do have to have more balance in my life, but it's still important for me not to reject either side of myself. And I think that's the big arc of Spider-Man 1 and 2. And also, like, Homecoming, again, I thought it was a really good movie, and I thought the villain in it was really good, but it didn't really have that same memorable feel as the Sam Raimi movies did. And also, you know, Charlie, you can probably bring this up more, but honestly, the MCU movies try so hard to, like, not... when they get to, like, a serious, goofy moment, they always have to follow it up with a joke. Absolutely. And that drives me insane.
It's called bathos. That's the word for it.
Yes.
They try to, like, cut the tension. Joss Whedon's a big fan of it, but he does it pretty well, actually. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of directors try to recreate that because, you know, that's, like, the pace. And I feel like also the movie just does fall victim to that, which I think Spider-Man Homecoming is not the worst at it. The worst is Thor Ragnarok, just saying.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
It's not, actually.
No.
Doctor Strange's pretty bad at it, too.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is pretty bad at it, too.
Black Panther.
I don't remember that much. I don't remember that much comedy in Black Panther.
I see Guardians of the Galaxy as more of like a comedy action in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like you're supposed to take it seriously as much.
Yeah. Like here's an example I can think of, and so this is actually going a little bit to the DC side of things, but and again I don't mean to be controversial, but when you compare Captain Marvel with Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel is this really sort of serious, you know, the jokes kind of come out of nowhere. Whereas in Wonder Woman just has more of this integrity to it, where it's really taking these characters seriously, even the goofy moments. Yeah.
And that's, I think, the big thing that with the Raimi Spider-Man, that they take the character more serious, I feel like, than a lot of the MCU characters. And also, I feel like Sam Raimi, the director, really took and made it his own movie. Because, like, if you look at, compare the two, I think, the Raimi Spider-Mans have a better soundtrack compared to the MCU Spider-Man. Like, I know almost the whole Raimi Spider-Man theme behind me, I'm like, it's all great. Yeah. Whereas if I think about the MCU Spider-Man, I can't remember the theme song in that movie, and that's with most MCU movies, with the exception of possibly the Avengers. The soundtrack is, I think, more iconic thanks to Danny Elfman, great composer. I think that's just one of the strong suits of that. Also, I feel like the color scheme in the Raimi movies is just better. Like,
No, go ahead. Continue. Sure.
The Raimi movies really have fun with the colors, like the set design, the costume design. It really kind of flows, but they set up try to tell a story with the colors throughout. Like in the Thanksgiving scene in Spider-Man 1, you see Norman Osborn wearing the Spider-Man colors, Peter wearing the Green Goblin colors, whereas here he's wearing both colors. It kind of shows how he's kind of like torn between the two in a way. I think that's a really nice touch right there. Also, any scene where like Green Goblin's in, the whole screen is just like, you know, green. And I feel like because they do that, and it's saturated also, they saturate the movie a lot with their colors, so it's a very bright movie in certain scenes. I feel like also, that makes it more like a comic book. Where I feel like the MCU Spider-Man falls more victim of like the bland gray tone MCU things. Like they don't really worry about their colors in a movie. I feel like that's why I feel like the Raimi Spider-Mans feel more like a comic book, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's okay. Sorry.
It's interesting, Billy, that you brought up kind of how the MCU Spider-Man remind you of the spectacular Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, the cartoon.
Yeah, because honestly, the Sam Raimi movies kind of remind me of a little bit of the older cartoons, you know, even from the 90s or the 60s. They sort of have that sort of goofy feel to it, which I like, but some people don't.
Yeah.
So I do want to bring up, though, that I agree that the MCU movies in general do have a lot of problems. For one, their movies in general seem very desaturated, not very colorful, which does seem anti-comic book for sure.
That's just kind of a problem with all their movies.
That's a problem with all of their movies.
That's not exclusive just to Spider-Man.
It's a problem with all modern movies.
Also, they all have the same comedic tone that I think that all the directors are kind of told to do. And from what I've heard in general, the color scheme is also something that they're kind of told. There are several things, like the action scenes, for example, are supposed to be a certain way, and the color schemes are supposed to be a certain way, and the comedic tone is supposed to be a certain way, and that's all kind of controlled by Marvel. I don't know if they were put in, if these directors were put in the same shoes as Sam Raimi, if they would make the movie to have these problems. I feel like Marvel's trying to create an overall tone across their entire universe, and I feel like that's not something that's a problem with the Spider-Man Homecoming movie and with Infinity War or anything. I think that's a problem just with the MCU in general. And you know what I mean? It's not necessarily a Spider-Man issue that like is comparable. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it still applies though, because it is part of the Spider-Man movie. Because we're comparing the Spider-Mans and the Spider-Man movies together.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know if they could have done, if they were even allowed to not do that. You know.
Well, you know, if anything, though, like going back to another Marvel DC comparison, like Brad did a second ago, I feel like that kind of works in the MCU's favor. The whole like consistent tone and color palette and everything, because like look at the DC movie universe right now. Like ever since Batman versus Superman and maybe even Suicide Squad to a lesser extent, every single one of these movies feels like it's in a different universe and they're supposed to all be in the same. It's just really jarring to think that a goofy slapstick thing like Shazam happened in the same universe as whatever the heck Batman versus Superman was.
Martha. Yeah. I agree, but at the same time, definitely I wish that that the MCU picked a better theme. But I don't think that the guy who did the Homecoming Spider-Man, I can't remember his name.
John Watts, I think.
John Watts.
Watts.
I don't think that he had a choice in the matter. I think he did the best he could with the tools he had, and I think that with the tools he had, he created a more likable Spider-Man. That's why I like.
And you know, if just something I was meaning to bring up a little bit ago, but it slipped my mind. Back to like Peter Parker's character arc in Homecoming, and how you guys talked about it was more like supposed to be him wanting to be an Avenger. I feel like that was a big part of it. But see, the thing is like when he's introduced in Captain America: Civil War, he tells, because like he's been at the Spider-Man thing for 6 months, I think, before he even meets Tony Stark. So he tells Tony, he's like, well, you know, when you can do the things I can do, and then you don't, and then this stuff happens. It happens because of you, because you could have stopped it. And I feel like in Homecoming, his mind kind of got a little clouded, because he kind of got clouded by that whole ambition to be an Avenger and just wanting to impress Tony Stark, and ended up making a lot of mistakes. And by the end of it, when he... like a lot of like the last act of Homecoming, I feel like really does a lot of good things for his character arc. But at the very, very end, Tony's like, yeah, I was wrong about you. You've got a good head on your shoulders. And he offers him the position to be an Avenger, and he turns it down because he feels like it'd be more important for him to stay, like, you know, as a street level hero in New York than to be off fighting aliens and everything. Which I think
that's one movie.
Well, let's just wait for because Infinity War happened, and you know you had that whole thing where he was like, well, you can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there is no neighborhood.
Exactly.
So I feel like he kind of did that for the greater good in Infinity War, but just wait for the next movie, and he's going to go back to just fighting thugs on the street again, I'm sure.
You know, one thing that would have made, I think, Homecoming a little bit more impactful for me is if you don't need to talk about Uncle Ben, you know, sorry to go back to that, but maybe just have, like, a scene where, like, you know, Peter Parker sees someone get killed because he was, you know, out partying, or he sees someone get hurt, and he just hears, like, the gunshot in his head. That's all we need. You know, that's all we need.
Funny you should mention that, because I feel like one scene in Homecoming that just fully embodies the whole great power, great responsibility thing is, and you know, everyone who wants to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming has to talk about this scene. The scene where he's in the car with the Vulture and Liz. And I feel like that's, you know, when he realizes the Vulture is Liz's dad and he has that little panic attack. The scene where he stops. And, like, you know, that's another MCU problem is, like, is it sad that was the best, that's like the second best plot twist in the MCU behind the Winter Soldier Hydra's shield thing?
That was only a plot twist. We saw that
anyway, though, but at the end of that scene, when he gets out of the car and the Vulture gives him that whole talk, like, listen, you walk away now. You can date my daughter. You can have the life you want. You just walk away, let me do my stuff. Just stay out of my business, and I'll stay out of yours, and you can have everything you want right now. And he can't do that. He doesn't even think about that. He goes back in, tells Liz, I'm sorry, gets his Spider-Man suit, and gets back out there and starts fighting. Like, I feel like that just embodies the whole great power, great responsibility Uncle Ben talk for me. Because, like, he can't sit back and let the Vulture do what he wants to do because he knows, like, you know, selling alien weapons to criminals is a bad thing.
And the big thing about Spider-Man is that he makes sacrifices all the time.
And they don't have to be big sacrifices. They can be things like not going to the dance or not going to the pool, you know?
Yeah. And this movie, really the whole movie of Homecoming is about, it's even called Homecoming, it's about him trying to get the girl for the most part, and almost the action is kind of like a side thing. And then, but he makes the sacrifice. In the end, after spending the whole movie trying to get this girl, he's like,
he can't do it.
He can't do it. Yeah, and he has to be the adult. And that's the thing, is that the movie is about him learning to be the adult and be responsible.
At that point in the story, Tony Stark had already taken his suit away, so the whole trying to become an Avenger thing wasn't even on the table for him at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So. He'd kind of been humiliated. So Charlie, what do you think about? Do you have any rebuttals to any of this?
I feel like that Spider-Man one plays out actually extremely similar to it too, because there's a scene just like the car scene in Homecoming and the first Spider-Man where he gets kidnapped by the Green Goblin. They're on a rooftop and he's getting all like, listen, we can work together and blah blah blah. Because eventually the city's going to hate you. We can work together and. Or we can keep fighting and again until we're both dead. I think it's kind of a very similar. Like he gives Spider-Man also like, hey, you can school, you can join me and like we can do what I need to do and win, or you can either go against me and we're going to keep fighting until either one of us is dead. And I feel like it's very similar to say like other big comic book arguments and fights, like say like Batman and the Joker and things like that.
And especially, with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, he could have told Harry at any point, look, I'm Spider-Man, your dad accidentally killed himself, but he doesn't, because he knows that would be kind of irresponsible of him to go around saying that. That would put him...
He would lose a friend, probably.
Yeah, he'd lose a friend, and, it'd put his family in danger. So I think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man really sort of... He embodies sort of taking things upon yourself and being self-sacrificial, and that sometimes that does come back to bite him in the butt. Like you see how in Spider-Man 2, all throughout the movie, he's constantly making those little mini sacrifices that he makes in Homecoming. Like, it's never something huge he makes. It's not like he decides, I'm going to let Aunt May die so I can go save these 5 people. It's more like, I'm going to miss Mary Jane's, play, or I'm not going to make it to my birthday party.
Yeah.
And those little things just really add up to the point where he just snaps. And that's one thing I really found believable about Spider-Man 2. It's just like, he gets nothing out of doing this. No money. He barely gets any fame because J. Jonah Jameson is,
drags his name through the mud all the time.
And that's something, what do you think about, like, the side characters of the Sam Raimi movie universe? Like,
I feel like for the most part they're better than most of them. So, like, I prefer the Rosemary Harris Aunt May to the Marissa Tomei Aunt May.
Oh,
like,
come on.
No.
I'll let you talk.
She's more of a motherly figure, I think. Like Marissa Tomei is, she's pretty cool. I like her. She's a pretty cool character. But I feel like in terms of like what Peter Parker needs in his life, I feel like the Marissa Tomei is more of like the motherly figure of him. She gives him the speeches that he needs to move on and things like that. Whereas I feel like we don't really get that out of Marissa Tomei.
Can we talk a little bit about how Aunt May in the MCU is sort of just... It sort of shows the problem MCU movies have is they keep on drawing attention to like their own flaws to kind of joke about them. Like how, they're always wearing hats and sunglasses and they bring that up and like, haha. And Aunt May, she's like, oh, she's younger and more attractive. We're going to bring that up all throughout the Homecoming movie.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's like Aunt May is more there because, like, she's not so much... I feel like she's a more integral part of, Spider-Man's life because, like, she's in danger because of what he does. I feel like that doesn't really happen in the whole Homecoming movie, which we haven't seen the next movie yet. Yeah, so I don't know about that. I feel like... I lost my pacing again. Dang it. But yeah, and also we have other characters. So like Mary Jane, I think, is a good romance option. Romance option. What is it, a video game? I don't know. I have to say something witty.
Telltale Spider-Man.
Ooh, I'll
Sing me a song, you're the Spider-Man.
Yeah, we're like, she does bounce around between a lot of people in the movies, but it's also because like she wants to be with Peter, but Peter keeps on pushing her away. And it's the exact same plot line, I feel like, in the romance aspect between Homecoming and the first Spider-Man. Because, like, he doesn't get the girl in the end. Just like Homecoming. He just walks away from it, like, similar to how it happens in Homecoming. So I feel like it's also just as impactful. Because I think it's a very nice scene, where he's just, like, walking away and has a little charming, like, this is my story, things like that, edgy stuff, etc. But I think... I don't feel like... any of the decisions are not justified in the movies, I feel like. Which I feel like it's up to both, like, oh, he makes stupid decisions all the time. Mary Jane's a jerk. She goes around and dates other people other than Peter Parker. I don't think that's a factor. I feel like she's a person who's kind of... I feel like all the decisions that they make are realistic at one point, and I think also impactful, I think.
Yeah, and plus, you know, with Mary Jane's situation, it's like she wants to be with Peter Parker, like you said, but he's just constantly blowing her off. So what else is she's supposed to do?
Yeah.
I think that the thing about it is, though, it's not that him making the poor decisions and all of the impactful choices that he makes aren't doing a good job of explaining why he's sacrificing his social life and things for being a hero and being the good guy, because it does exemplify that, and it does do a good job of showing that. But the difference between the MCU Spider-Man and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man is that with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, he has nothing. Like, he doesn't really have any friends. He might have
friends.
Not really.
Friends. He has his class.
Raimi's friend does not have friends either, though.
He does, though. He has like one friend at least, and it feels like
MCU Spider-Man.
That's in the MCU Spider-Man. He has. It seems like he has more friends. It seems like there's more people that have his back, and in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, it seems like it's just so. It's like he doesn't really have anyone at all, and everyone he does have, like, they're not really there, and it. How do I put this? It's like the pressure. The pressure is so much more high in the old Spider-Man movies, to the point where it's uncomfortable, because it's like he just does this make sense? Am I making sense?
You're making sense. You don't have a rebuttal here.
It's far too uncomfortable. It's like unpleasant. Anyway,
if I may bring up the Aunt May thing that you guys mentioned. Now, I will concede that MCU Aunt May, I feel like she's not the best, but that's just because, like, she's barely in Homecoming. You know, she's only in, like, 2 or 3 scenes, but I feel like she does what she needs to do, and I kind of like that portrayal of her as more of, like, you know, the cool mom type. And but the big problem I have with Sam Raimi Aunt May, and I feel like there's just one scene in the whole trilogy that just completely ruins that version of Aunt May for me. And I believe this is in Spider-Man 2. Could be wrong, correct me on that. But it's the scene where Peter tells Aunt May that he could have caused Uncle Ben's death, and Aunt May basically treats him like crap and makes him feel
Hold on. We're backing it up here.
No, continue, because I agree.
She makes him feel more guilty for Uncle Ben's death, which
she just leaves.
Here's the thing, is like, in a way that's a very realistic human response, but Aunt May as a character is supposed to be Peter's moral compass. She's supposed to be the person who has his back no matter what. She's always there for him, and I feel like any other version of Aunt May, if he had delivered that information, she would have been like, yeah, that sucks, but I still love you.
But,
okay. Wait, hold on. When he comes, I just watched this movie. I just had thoughts on this. When he comes back, like when she's moving into a smaller apartment, and she's like, oh, it's water under a bridge. It's really clear, at least to me, that they're trying to portray that, no, she's really, really bothered by this. And she just...
How?
You can just tell by the way that she responds to it.
Here's the thing.
Because she didn't call him to help her move or anything. She just wants to be... I think that she's trying to be the good Aunt May, but she does not like that this is the way it ended up. And to me, that's when Aunt May... he loses even Aunt May at that point.
He doesn't lose Aunt May, though.
Right.
Do you want...
So he tells her a really shocking thing that's kind of hard on her. So he has to take a breather. Has to walk off for a second. That's a normal thing. I've told people, like, bad things before, and they're like, I need to take a second to process this. It's happened in my relationships. It's happened with you and me. Like, it's happened like that. Like, you told me something, I had to, like, walk off because, like, ooh, that's kind of rough. Not comfortable with this. It's happened before.
Yeah, but, like, here's the thing.
I'm not
like,
done.
Okay.
Whereas, yes, he did have time to think about it, and he came back, and I don't think it's more regretful. She doesn't want to bother him first off, because, I mean, if you met any parent, they don't want to bother their kid when they're busy, things like that. Things like that. Like you said, things like that. That's how it goes. Right, and she does say, yeah, it's water on a bridge, but she I think, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, when he tells Aunt May that, now keep in mind, all she's ever known is that Uncle Ben died, and it was unfortunate, it was tragic, but we've moved on. And then after they moved on, all of a sudden he drops this bombshell on it that I could have prevented it. And she, like, And I get that, Aunt May is supposed to be the moral compass, but she's still a person. So
it's a human, yeah.
Yeah, it's a human. So it's like, imagine, someone telling you, hey, your significant other, I'm responsible for that, and it's someone you also love, she could have done a lot worse. She could have yelled at him, she could have screamed at him, but no. She got up because she couldn't handle the situation, and she went off, which is really probably the most merciful thing she could have done. Because you can't just say to something like that, "Oh, it's fine," because it's not.
It's really not fine.
It's not fine.
It's a major consequence.
Yeah, so. Forgiveness is not about saying it's fine. It's about saying, "Hey, we've moved on," and she does.
But the thing is she knows that Uncle Ben's death has been on his mind for a while. She knows that he already feels a lot of bad feelings about that event, and then just to make him feel worse.
Well, but she's a person too. He was her husband.
It's just kind of an out of character thing, you gotta.
It's not really out of character. It's more just it's showing that even Aunt May has her limits.
So the thing is that it's not that she walked away. Even I think it's that when prior to that. And very soon prior to that in the movie, she's saying all kinds of things. She's going to his grave constantly. She says to him directly, if I meet the person who is responsible, I don't know what I'd do, and all this stuff.
Know that.
And then immediately after, it's only a few scenes later that he tells her, and so she's not over it. And even she is clearly a moral character. She's trying to do what's right, and she's trying to forgive him, but I don't think she truly does, and I think the movie portrays that, is that she doesn't really forgive him, she just tries to forget about it. And so I do think that it's one of those things where even though she probably wants to do right by Spider-Man, she probably can't get past that at this point, is what I took away from the movie.
I would say she forgives him, but forgiveness is always a process. It's usually not a one-time thing. It's normally, and I know Spider-Man 3 is very controversial, but by that one she's completely forgiven him. She's helping him figure out what to do about Mary Jane, and she's telling him no, you don't need to kill people, stuff like that.
I do want to point out that although I'm arguing for the MCU, I want to say that Spider-Man 3 is an underrated movie. It's not good, but it's not as bad
Honestly,
as people say.
If you ask me, I feel like all three of the Raimi Spider-Man movies kind of flow together really cohesively.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 isn't quite the hellish trap and quality that people make it out.
Yeah.
Also, the Sand dude, who I can't remember the name.
Sandman.
See, I always get that confused with the DC Sandman. But
that's good.
That scene where he first
oh yeah, I know what you're talking
rises out of the sand.
That's absolutely beautiful.
That's a really good scene.
I mean,
actually a really good scene.
The entirety of the Spider-Man trilogy was like that scene, as good as that scene, they would win out over the MCU Spider-Man any day.
And here's
Such
the thing:
a
is
good scene.
I think we're not saying the Raimi trilogy is awful. It's just it has good scenes, But I feel like on the whole, it hasn't. I don't know how to put it. It's just
as an H-Bill.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I don't know, because I hate to say that, because I've always hated when people say a movie or a video game hasn't aged well. No, it's the same movie or the same game it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You were just so young that you thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I'm not wrong there. A lot of critics gave the first Spider-Man a bad review when it came out because the same problems that I have with it. It's cartoony, it's outlandish,
it's a comic book.
But it definitely has that comic book feel, and even the way Aunt May looks. She looks just like she looks in the comics. And I think with
some things that are hand drawn just don't translate well into live action. It's the curse of Wolverine's costume.
But not only that, but not only that though. The thing is that in the Spider-Man comics that they're trying to emulate in the Sam Raimi in the Sam Raimi movies, which I do think they do emulate comics a little better than all of the MCU movies do, because the MCU movies feel more like movies than they do comic books. The thing is that there's so much more time that can be put into the little moments of Peter Parker's life in the comic books, that there's more time for good things to happen to him, pleasant moments, that it's not just one horrible thing happening after another, because a lot of the horrible things that happen to Spider-Man in the movie, in those old movies, do happen in the comic books to some degree. And so I like the fact that it's included, but those are the more important moments. The bad things are kind of the more important moments, and when you have them in movies form, it's just one thing after another. And that's part of the reason why I don't like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man as much, is just because it hurts. It hurts so much. And with the MCU movies, the pressure's kind of off. It's more relaxing because he's just a kid, and it's more just him learning and growing up. And so it's a little bit more pleasant. It's a little bit more relaxing of a watch.
Right.
And I really think that that's what it comes down to, because it's not that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man doesn't do a good job of portraying him in the comic book sense, in the comic booky idea, and it's not that he does a bad job of showing the things that Peter Parker is going through. It's just that it's constantly bludgeoning you over the head, and it hurts, and it's almost just because there's only a certain amount of runtime that you can't show his moments where he's not having something bad happen to him.
Do you think the reason for that is because in the MCU, like, Spider-Man is just one hero of many, whereas in Sam Raimi, he's just by himself, and he's the only really adult with powers that uses them responsibly?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I think that the more important question would be that at least Peter Parker doesn't think that there's any other heroes, but it seems unreasonable to me that you would have supervillains like Peter Parker is experiencing without there also being other superheroes.
And, if you want to get in, 6 degrees of nerdery, there's, one line in Spider-Man 2 that confirms that Doctor Strange, at the very least, exists in the Sam Raimi universe.
Oh, yeah! That's taken! I remember!
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So at the very least, Doctor Strange exists. And in a deleted scene from Spider-Man 1, I think it was, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was supposed to show up. So we can assume that the X-Men might exist, too.
That's pretty cool.
So they didn't put it in there. So
no, they didn't put it in there.
It does not actually exist, though.
It's more kind of on the side.
And I'll be honest, I kind of prefer it when superheroes are in their own element.
Yes.
Because when they have a big ensemble cast, it does take the pressure off of a specific character and their specific character arc. But I mean, I don't know if that's what Marvel's going for right now. So you kind of have to judge it on the merits of what they're trying to do currently with their current mode of operation.
Charlie, what do you think about kind of the interconnectedness of all the universes? Because for me, with the way MCU is right now, it's really hard to take individual movies super seriously because they're so interconnected that it's hard to suspend disbelief. What do you think?
I agree for the most part with that. I feel like one of the benefits of the Raimi movie is that it is just kind of one long story. It holds together pretty well, and it's just that one Spider-Man. Whereas the MCU Spider-Man, I feel like is that interconnected universe where I feel like to a degree most of the gloves are mostly on. I think for the most part, because you could argue hey, the Vulture is trying to steal all these artifacts. Why doesn't he tell Iron Man? But I feel like that's not really an option in the Raimi movies. You can't really make that argument why didn't Spider-Man tell Doctor Strange that Green Goblin was attacking a thing, because it doesn't exist in that universe because it's just that one Spider-Man. I feel like the benefit of the Raimi Spider-Man is that one is just him, and for that we see his impact on New York. I feel like the Spider-Man movies are really the only major movies I think that really shows him just swinging around day to day and actually stopping little crimes and stuff. You see him stopping bank robberies and just passing moments. You see him stopping accidents, things like that, carjackings.
Stupid question, but you are talking about Homecoming right now, right? Because we see that in Homecoming where he's going around stopping bikes.
Yeah, that's not stopping crime. He's helping find where a tree will stand or something like that.
No, but there's a scene where
the
he
ATM
stops
robbery.
But it's a humorous scene.
Yeah, but there's more of it, I feel in the whole Raimi movies. So it's throughout all the movies where he's out there just all
in the Homecoming,
kind of passively stopping crime.
I feel in Homecoming that's what makes it stand apart from other MCU movies, because we see him stopping the little crimes. Because I feel at the end of the day that's the whole point of Homecoming and why he decides not to be an Avenger.
But
Raimi is stopping the little crimes in the movies, though.
Doesn't in Homecoming, does he spend a lot of time just picking up cats and he's sort of bored a little bit? Or am I
he's still learning to be a hero at that, because he's still a kid.
Well,
and that's part of
in Homecoming, he's only had his powers for 6 months.
Yeah.
Whereas Spider-Man 1 takes care over almost an entire year almost. That's how the whole time span of that movie. It's almost a whole year.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to bring up real quick is I really like, the comedy a little bit better than the Sam Raimi. And I know for a lot of people it's really cheesy, but you can't tell me you can't watch the ridiculous pizza scene and not smile a little bit.
I will concede that every time
anxiety.
I do concede that every time Willem Dafoe is on screen in Spider-Man 1, he just
he's clearly having a good time in that movie.
Yeah, but like. Yeah, that's why those whole movies like just come off as comedies to me, especially with Willem Dafoe just being
that's the
weird.
Thing, is that in those movies, because of all the pressure that they put on Peter Parker in those movies, I just feel constant anxiety watching those movies, which is why I don't like them as much. Because of all my biggest point is that because they give him so many bad things that happen to him, I just feel so much anxiety all the time for his character.
Quick sign up from an outside audience member, Mr. Sandifer says the Spider-Man cartoon 1967-1970 was king. Thumbs up emoji.
Nice.
So
yeah, I think with Spider-Man and Sam Raimi, Spider-Man and Sam Raimi did get some wins. I mean, he did get the girl, and he did end up, sort of establishing a life for himself. That's why in Spider-Man 3, he's on the uptake, and then all of a sudden the symbiote shows up, and now all of a sudden he finally becomes like, honestly, the way he's really dorky in Spider-Man 3. I think most of us can agree to that.
Dorky in all of them,
but like in a worse level when he's like trying to be edgy.
Yeah.
He's
the dance.
Yeah, like with but Spider-Man 3 is also kind of showing like if he just sort of stopped giving a crap.
Yeah. Sorry.
And he just started being just like the jerk he wants to be and using his powers however he wants, and then that ends up, screwing up his life again, so.
I think one aspect is that the symbiote does not make Spider-Man cool. I think the symbiote removes his inhibitions, so he's doing what a loser thinks would be cool, which I can attest. I would be dancing down New York Street doing weird dances and putting finger guns at girls and all that. So I feel like...
Gotta put some dirt in your eye.
Gotta put some dirt in your eye.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. You're trash, Brock.
But
I want... Levi made a comment earlier, I forgot to mention it, but so Levi said that...
Charlie, side note, my mom says she loves that your dad texted you during the show.
Aww.
Your mom just texted you during the show.
Yeah, she texts me during the show all the time.
That's nice, I like
She's
that.
a good mom.
But Levi said earlier that he doesn't like how things are always constantly happening to him, like all these bad things blow after blow, and in many ways movies kind of make him feel a bit uncomfortable, right?
To the point where like it's overwhelming.
Yeah,
gotcha.
You know what I mean?
I feel like that also possibly attains to Sam Raimi's directorial style. So he is a man known for a lot of his horror movies. He made the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, even his horror movies are known for having a lot of camp.
Yeah.
So just campy cheesiness is just a staple.
That's just what he does.
Yeah, but like one thing he likes is that he always said that the same thing that makes us scream in the theaters is the thing that makes us laugh in theaters. It's the exact same thing. That's how he likes playing around with, tension, how long things happen. I feel like that's one of the things. So like in the Evil Dead movies, constant things bad constantly happens, like blow after blow to the character of Ash. I feel like that's also transitioning. I feel like that is a directorial style of him. So I feel like that might explain why
I just think that's not my sense of humor, because whenever a character is embarrassing themselves in, like for example in The Office, I love The Office, right?
Oh, The Office,
but Michael Scott is constantly publicly embarrassing himself. I don't find that funny. I hate that. It hurts me.
Yeah,
I have too much empathy for me to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, there are certain movies when it gets really movies where it gets really uncomfortable between two couples or two siblings. It's just I cringe inside. But
yeah,
Spider-Man doesn't really do that to me as much, but I see your point with that.
It just hurts me because I feel like so many people, when faced with the kinds of things that Peter Parker is faced with in the old movies, they'd probably kill themselves. Let's be real. It's really awful what Sam Raimi puts him through, without almost any let up. Like the least that he could do is just let him enjoy a nice day or something.
He does technically in Spider-Man 2. He takes away the Spider-Man. We see him walking down the street.
Eating
a hot dog vigorously.
But see, that's the thing, is that he's ignoring his responsibilities in order to have a nice day.
He doesn't have any powers.
Yeah, he does.
Not at that moment.
Okay, I interpreted that as he was struggling with his powers, but he hadn't lost them, because his powers were very linked to his stress. Which, by the way, as I watched that during finals, I just related to that almost to an uncomfortable level.
Label scene Spider-Man right there.
But the worst part is that Sam Raimi is putting Peter Parker through all these things. Tobey Maguire plays him in such a way that I just can't help but hate Peter Parker. Just the way he just his wide-eyed kind of It just
like, you know,
at least he could be likable while he fails.
In Spider-Man: Homecoming, I feel like probably either the best or the second best scene in that movie, like this and the scene in the car, are like the two best. The one where he confronts the Vulture and ends up like getting trapped underneath all the rubble. Like, there's that scene where he just like, his first instinct is just break down, start crying, and start screaming for help. And there's a bit of realism in that scene where like all of a sudden you just remember like, oh crap, at the end of the day, this is still a 15-year-old kid,
little kid
who has all this stuff thrown on him and feels that he's responsible to take care of this crap. And that's just such a great scene right there. And I feel like there's just such a nice emotional weight to that scene that the Raimi movies don't really get to, just because of Tobey Maguire's weird performance.
Yeah, I don't feel any sympathy for Tobey Maguire because of how first of all, because of his age. I feel like he is old enough to where he should have a little bit more social awareness than he does. And secondly, because he just... and this is probably partially Sam Raimi's fault, that he played it like this, but he's just so not likable. He's a dork to the point where I can't feel any sympathy for him anymore.
Or like, and Tom Holland's Peter Parker is just like a lovable dork. You know, like, you can believe that he gets picked on, but he has a bit of likability about him.
I just want to take the frog out of his mouth.
They're two different really types of dorks. Like, Tom Holland, I feel, is more of like sort of a Gen Z or millennial dork.
Well, yeah, he's 15 in the movie.
Yeah. He's more like Gen Z, you know, he's out there T-posing, he's out there dabbing. Whereas, like...
at least at the end of the day, he still plays with Legos, you know?
Yeah. Whereas Tobey Maguire is more of like a Gen X dork. Like, before nerds were cool, when nerds were just like the complete social outcasts. And you really see him, because he doesn't have like any friends at all, except for Norman, who's like,
well, you see look on his face with his glasses that don't compliment him. You know, like every facial expression that Tobey Maguire makes is like the most dorky, worst facial expression possible.
I love it too.
And then like they intentionally make him look like a nerd by giving him I don't know. It's funny because he takes off his glasses when he becomes Spider-Man, and then he puts them back on, and it just makes him look even more nerd.
We have not seen Tom Holland in glasses yet.
That's true.
And
I think that Tom Holland could probably pull off glasses.
Can we talk about Tobey Maguire's stupid Peter Parker comb-over?
But that's a classic.
That was style in the time, though. That was style in the time.
If I may, though, interesting thing that I like to note about, Peter Parker being a nerd in Homecoming, and like how you were saying, how there are two types of nerds. You know, like there are the dorky kind, and there are the kind that are like more accepted in culture today. That's what I kind of like about the Homecoming portrayal of Flash Thompson, because he's a dork too. Like, they're both on like the science team together, you know. So Flash Thompson in the MCU is a nerd. He's just a cooler nerd who picks on the bottom feeder.
My Flash could beat up your Flash.
I feel like that's...
but like, and also, I know we were talking about this before we went on the air, and I know his preferred insult for Peter Parker in the movie we probably can't say on the radio.
Kirsten Parker.
But, yeah. But anyway, like, he's a more realistic bully in the MCU, too, because like, he doesn't shove Peter in lockers or shove his head in the toilet. He just verbally harasses him and makes these asinine insults that a third grader would find funny.
The Raimi done this one that too. He just, like, taunts them and stuff. And especially when he's been bullied, I feel like it's not crazy out of the blue what, the Flash in the Raimi movies does. Like,
yeah, but the Flash in the MCU, like, if we're going to talk about personal experience, MCU Flash reminds me of the kids who used to pick on me back in the day.
And it's like small little things that he does, but yet Tom Holland, the Tom Holland Peter Parker, like, lets them get to him, and you're like, oh, come on, dude, you know that it's stupid.
You could squash him like
he's just
a
kid. It just reminds. That's ironic. It just reminds me that he's just a kid, and he's got kid problems, and that those problems are so much more real to him than they are to the people watching.
Like,
and
there's the scene where
pressure off.
There's the scene where like he has to go on like he has to go like find the Vulture at the Staten Island ferry, and Ned's just like, no, dude, you can't do that. We have a Spanish quiz. Like, that's another scene where it hits you. Like, he's a kid. He's a sophomore in high school.
I can't go to Germany. Why? I have homework.
Yeah, one thing about that, I think it's more almost like a generational thing, and also like social class thing, because I get the idea that Tom Holland is almost in like a private school. To be honest, he gives me sort of that vibe.
I think it was more meant to be like a magnet school.
Yeah, because like, he, like, Flash Thompson kind of reminds me more how, like, kids would probably bully, like, closer to today, because everyone's more of a nerd now.
Yeah.
So it's more like you have tiered systems of how.
Yeah, it's like I said, Flash Thompson in the MCU is a nerd too.
Yeah.
He's just a top-tier nerd.
I think we can all agree, though, that the worst Spider-Man movies are the Andrew Garfield ones.
Hey, don't hate on them. My dad likes those.
You know, they appealed.
They have certain charms.
They appealed to my edgy high school self, but like looking back at them, they're not good.
They're just
You
like
do have
wet
to agree,
noodles.
Emma Stone is definitely the finest Spider-Man girl. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Well, we have about
Peter Parker, you're all alone.
I don't even remember any of the villains from those movies at all.
It was the lizard
Don't you
and
know I'm Electro.
blue guy.
Blue guy.
Dubstep
No, like,
artist.
Blue electrical blue man.
I hate that because like the Lizard is one of like Spider-Man's top tier villains, and that's the movie they had to waste him on.
Yeah. He was in the same Raimi universe. That's the
Dr.
funny
Connors.
part. Yeah,
He
Dr.
was,
Connors.
yeah.
He's
Honestly,
Connors Raimi.
The coolest
And granted,
Spider-Man
Harvey
villain
Dent
is
was
Doc
in the
Ock.
'80s Batman and never became
Played by
Superman.
Lando
Sure.
Calrissian.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams.
Well, we
That's
only have
awesome.
about 3 minutes left, so it's going to have some final comments on your movie where I think it's the best. So, Billy, go ahead.
I like Spider-Man: Homecoming the best because I like Tom Holland's portrayal as Peter Parker, and I really feel like it embodies the whole relatability and the great power comes great responsibility mantra without beating you over the head with it.
Okay, Brad.
I feel like I like the same Raimi movies because they just have so much integrity, and you really get to feel viscerally just how difficult it is to be Spider-Man, but also how rewarding it can be.
I like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies because they're more of a relaxing and pleasant watch without so much anxiety. And also because I like that he's just kind of a kid dealing with kid problems. And also because he's a kid who has to interact with these big adult Avengers. I think that's really appealing too.
I like the Raimi movies because they feel more like a comic to me, and also due to their box office performance. They're in many ways the reason we have the great MCU movies today. So I feel like, in my opinion, you're allowed to like whatever Spider-Man you like, and that's okay.
No, I feel like we really owe the MCU today to like the Sam Raimi trilogy and the X-Men trilogy.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
the
the Blade
X-Men for
movies.
And the MCU Spider-Man
And
is
the Blade
great.
movies, exactly.
Yeah.
What we really need is a Moon Knight movie.
And to a lesser extent, the two Fantastic Four movies, the watchable ones.
Oh my gosh.
They're watchable.
No,
I
they're bad, but they're watchable, not like
They're
Four
funny.
Stick.
I just can't
I saw
look at
listen,
the
I saw
thing.
Fant Four Stick in theaters,
Oof.
and like by the end of that, I was just like, what? What just
Movies
happened?
full of beans.
Yeah.
That was our show
Those
for
one
today.
hurts.
Oh, and Michael Keaton is the Vulture.
He did a
Love
good
that
job.
He
Love
did.
that man.
He really did.
Mm-hmm.
One of the better
Yeah.
MCU with them.
Like if you pause the movie during like certain frames of the car scene, he has some of like the best facial expressions.
and the lighting
ever.
on his face during the stoplight.
Oh, yeah. He's frightening.
It's like it turns green right when you realize who Spider-Man is. It's like, oh, he had a... It's nice. There's some nice things in that. Brad, you have a show to plug?
Yeah. So next Thursday at 7 o'clock, I'll be having a new show called The Dank History Show. And this is for people, whether you're a history buff or you don't even like history. It's going to talk about just really cool events, really cool people, and how it affects us today. The first episode is going to be about how the Vikings created the English language. Hope you'll join us.
The Vikings gave us pizza time, guys. Vikings gave us pizza time.
Do we want to
Oh, yeah.
do our social media?
Oh, yeah. We read about that, didn't we? Go ahead, Levi.
Yeah. So our Twitter is _heroes, and our Instagram is heroes_on_the_horizon. Go follow us on there, and also on our YouTube, which is I think just Heroes on the Horizon.
Yeah.
And keep updated with what we're doing. Do you want to plug your social media as well, if you have any for your show?
Yeah, you can follow me at HistoryDank. That's history and then DANK.